I haven't been back for so many years, and it's just as lively here. It's been nearly 15 years since I last attended a festival like this. How time flies. Wow, this lantern is so exquisite, much better than the one I had when I was a kid.
These lights, Mei Ling, are like our dreams, bright and fleeting. Every year they illuminate the sky, and just as quickly, they fade into the darkness of night.
Don't think too much. Let the past be the past. Life is more interesting because of twists and turns. Let's make a wish together. A wish that will last longer than light. This is not only my wish tonight, but my wish for all the days to come.
Hi, are you tourists or do you live around here?
Hello, we came from Kaohsiung to visit this lantern festival, so we are tourists.
I see. Would you mind if I join you? I came here alone, and this is my first time back in Taiwan in 5 years since returning from the U.S.
Of course you can join. Your experience sounds interesting. So, have you emigrated to the U.S.?
Yes. I've been in the U.S. for over 20 years. This year, my husband and I came back to visit. It's been too long since our last visit, but he's out meeting old friends tonight, so I came to the Lantern Festival alone. How about you? From your accents, you must be locals, right? Are you working or studying?
Yes, we are Taiwanese. We graduated a few years ago and have just started working.
I noticed you looked a bit troubled earlier. Is something bothering you recently?
Ah, you guessed right. Yes, I was laid off at the beginning of this year. Then a few months ago I started a coffee shop. But the business hasn't been great, and I'm hesitating whether to keep it going.
I understand. Don't worry, setbacks like yours are quite common. It might be painful for you right now, but you should know there are many people in worse situations. Life is full of setbacks, but looking back after overcoming them, they're just valuable experiences or stories to tell.
Yeah, we understand that, but when we really encounter difficulties, we will still worry.
That's good. So don't worry too much. Focus on the difficulties you are facing now. Cheer up and work hard to solve the problems.
It looks like you really like this lantern, huh?
Yes, it's beautiful. The most special one I've seen tonight.
Indeed, I've been attending these festivals for many years, and this lantern is very different from those I saw in my childhood. The craftsmanship is very complex, and the lantern is exquisite. May I ask, did you make this?
Yes, I made this. It's normal that you haven't seen it before. This is a unique craft from my hometown.
From your accent, you must be from mainland China. May I ask where you are from?
Shandong, in northern China. You might know this place, but I believe these two young people might not know where it is.
Haha, yes, I've heard of it, but don't really have a clear idea or even know where it is.
That's normal. I've been in Taiwan for 50 years and haven't been back. My memories of my hometown are starting to fade.
That long? So you came over with the Kuomintang army?
Yes, that was half a century ago.
Time really flies. Did you come here alone? Are your family still in China? Can you tell me your story? I'm quite curious about these things. Of course, if you don't want to reminisce, that's fine too.
Of course, it's rare that someone wants to chat with an old man like me.
We're interested too. We learned about these in history books, but it always felt distant to me. I've heard some stories from my grandfather, who came from Hunan.
It's a long and complicated story. Let me think. It must have been the end of 1948. It was cold, almost winter. I was picking up dry branches in the woods near my home, preparing for winter. Suddenly, a group of about 30 or 40 Kuomintang soldiers passed by. They forcibly conscripted me into their ranks, which is known as grabbing the strong ones. I initially resisted, but they yelled and threatened me with their guns.
My gosh, we've learned about this in textbooks, but this is the first time I've met someone who experienced it.
Yes. Even then, I pleaded with them. I said I was willing to go with them, but asked to say goodbye to my parents, and they didn't agree. So I had to leave everything and go with them.
So you never returned to your hometown after that?
Yes, I never imagined that departure would be a final goodbye.
Have you ever met with your family again?
No, I haven't either. Later on, due to the tense situation between Taiwan and mainland China, travel between the two sides was not allowed, let alone for someone with a military background like me. Even sending letters was very difficult, needing to go through a third party like Hong Kong. And, as you know, Taiwan went through the period of White Terror and mainland China experienced the Cultural Revolution, so the scrutiny of communication between the two sides was very strict. Being caught would have led to being accused of treason. So, in over 50 years, I've only managed to exchange letters with my family 4 times, the last time being 5 years ago. My parents passed away 30 years ago. I learned of their death in my first correspondence with my family, which my sister told me. In the last letter, my sister mentioned that our brother had passed away, and she herself had cancer. I guess she's probably no longer alive either.
Oh my, I'm so sorry to have brought up such painful memories. To think you were alone, just over 20 years old when you came to a foreign land, and didn't even get to say goodbye to your parents. Then the first time you contacted your family, your parents had already died. Meaning they died without knowing where you went, not knowing whether you were alive or dead. I can hardly imagine how they felt, searching for their son for so long.
Yes, but actually it's okay because back then, in the countryside, families often had several children. Our family had 4. So it was somewhat common for children to accidentally die or go missing. And although parents would be sad, it wasn't as devastating as it would be in families today with only 1 or 2 children. Also, life was tough back then, during times of war. So the frequent occurrences of death or disappearance weren't as hard to accept as you might imagine today.
I understand what you're saying. As a middle-aged person who has also experienced changes in times, I know that families today value their children much more than in your generation. But as someone middle-aged myself, I can also imagine how tough it must have been for you to come to a foreign land alone and live here for so many years, especially as you grow older and increasingly yearn to return to your homeland.
Yes, when I first came here, I was still in the military, and it was okay because my comrades were familiar faces, so it didn't feel too foreign. And because I was young and curious about the new environment, I adapted fairly well in the initial years. But later, as relations between the two sides became stably tense, and we gradually realized that we might never be able to return to our hometown, or even may not do so for the rest of our lives, we began to feel despondent, especially after the military downsized, including many of us being forced to leave the service and fend for ourselves. It was then that I truly felt the loneliness, helplessness, and confusion of being alone in a foreign land.
Yes, I understand how you feel because I also went to the United States for my studies when I was 20. While I was in school, the companionship of friends and the absence of pressures to make a living meant I didn't feel too uncomfortable. But when I started working, especially when I faced difficulties at work, I felt the loneliness of being alone in a foreign country. However, you had it much harder than me. I was in a peaceful era, and there was free travel between the United States and Taiwan.
So you're also an immigrant? No wonder I find your accent quite unique, too. Our experiences do share many similarities. But in recent years, China and Taiwan have gradually opened up for family visits, and I have friends who have managed to return home. However, these opportunities are limited, and I don't know when I'll be able to go back.
Yes, I am aware of this policy change. I hope you can return to your hometown soon.
So have you settled down and started a family here in Taiwan?
Yes, I consider myself lucky. Not long after I was discharged from the military, I met my current wife. We have a good relationship and 3 children, 2 sons and a daughter. But quite a few of the military personnel who came to Taiwan with me did not start families, and compared to them, their lives are even more tragic.
Yes, having a loving partner and a happy family in a foreign land can provide a great sense of belonging.
The world is so unpredictable, and an individual is so insignificant before the tides of time. Life is always full of surprises. We cannot predict whether tomorrow or an accident will come first. All we can do is maintain a calm and peaceful attitude and face life's difficulties. In fact, looking back on my life now, I sometimes think that perhaps coming to Taiwan with the Kuomintang was a right accident. It is because of that I met my wife and have a happy family, and Taiwan's development has been much better than mainland China's. Had I stayed in mainland China, my living standards definitely wouldn't have reached what they are now.
Indeed, there's an old Chinese saying that makes a lot of sense. Disaster is the foundation on which fortune rests, and fortune is where disaster hides.
I'm older now and no longer do physical labor, so I opened a lantern shop instead, bringing over the lantern-making craft from my hometown. It's also a form of cultural heritage, a way to remember and cherish my homeland.